say it has financial capital flows. What's your view?
Yeah, theoretically, it is a kind of impact on the flow of the investment. But actually, I think that China's market is very big, and we do have many other considerations for the investors. For some of the inflows, maybe they are considering not only about the short-term interest spread between Chinese market and other markets, but they are trying to grasp the opportunities of the long-term development in China.
That's Dr. Zhou Li, Senior Research Fellow with Chinese Academy of International Trade and Economic Cooperation. And that's all the time we have for this edition of World Today. A quick recap of today's headlines. China-ASEAN Expo is underway in Nanning. Chinese Premier Li Qiang says China-ASEAN relations are the most successful model in Asia-Pacific cooperation. Senior Chinese and U.S. officials meet in Malta for substantive and constructive talks. The summit of the Group of 77 in China has concluded with emphasis on empowering the global south. An Okinawa governor is visiting Geneva to oppose the relocation of a U.S. military base in Japan. To listen to this episode again or to catch up on previous episodes, you can download our podcast by searching World Today. I'm Zhao Ying. Thank you so much for listening. See you next time. Hello everyone, this is Zoon Ahmed Khan, currently based in Tsinghua University. World Today is an excellent initiative to discuss current affairs by including experts from across the globe. I've always enjoyed our thought-provoking discussions and wish the team even more success and impact in the future.
Economic analyst and senior fellow at the independent Tiger Institute. World Today is news without the hype and business commentary that is informed and up to date, presenting the facts and asking incisive questions. So, join us if you are someone who needs to know what is happening in China as it is happening. GTN Radio. Hear the difference.
Now the news. I'm Wang Fuhan. CPC Chief of Foreign Affairs Wang Yi has held multiple rounds of meetings with U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan in Malta. And hold consultations on Asia-Pacific affairs, maritime affairs, and foreign policies. Wang, who is also Chinese Foreign Minister, emphasized that the Taiwan question is the first red line that must not be crossed in the China-US relationship. He said the US must abide by the Free China-US joint communiques and honor commitments to not supporting Taiwan independence. Chinese authorities say the country has not been invited to participate in analysis and comparative testing of contaminated water discharged from the Fukushima nuclear power plant. The statement comes in response to media reports claiming that China has refused to join the international monitoring scheme of the International Atomic Energy Agency. The Chinese embassy in Japan reiterates the need to establish a long-term and effective international monitoring arrangement with the full participation of neighboring countries and other stakeholders. Monday marks the 92nd anniversary of the September 18th incident. On this day in 1931, Japanese troops stationed in northeastern China blew up a section of the railway near the city of Shenyang and accused Chinese troops of sabotage. The incident marked the beginning of the Chinese People's War of resistance against Japanese aggression and was a prelude to the Second World War. Each year on September 18th, China pays tribute to the victims and martyrs who sacrificed their lives in the 14 years of war. Guanyang reports from Shenyang.
At 9:18, representatives from the People's Liberation Army, as well as the central and the local governments, struck the bell 14 times in commemoration of the 14-year war against Japanese invasion. Then sirens sounded for 3 minutes in Shenyang and in many other cities in China's northeast to mark the 92nd anniversary of the September 18 incident. As the sirens wailed in the city, pedestrians stood in silent tribute. Vehicles honked with moments of silence. Since 1995, Shenyang has sounded the air raid alarm on this occasion to commemorate the event.
Airstrikes and ground battles have continued in Sudan. Videos posted online show flames devouring landmarks of the Khartoum skyline, including the Ministry of Justice and the Greater Nile Petroleum Oil Company Tower. The conflict between the army and the RSF dates back to mid-April. It has since killed over 7,000 people and displaced millions. Water workers continue to strike in the United States. The United Water Workers Union warns that a historic industrial action will expand, and they will do whatever they have to do if the top 3 auto manufacturers do not raise their wage offers. Jim Spellman has more.
United Auto Workers Union and the big 3 U.S. automakers, Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis, parent company of Chrysler and Jeep, continued talks over the weekend. Union leaders say slow progress has been made, but no deal has emerged. The two sides remain far apart on major issues, including pay raises and the elimination of a tiered system that provides less pay and job security for newer employees. Meantime, Ford has laid off hundreds of other plant workers, and GM has plans to follow suit, citing ripple effects of the strike on interconnected facilities. Union President Sean Payne has cast the strike as part of a larger struggle against corporate greed. President Biden has been sympathetic to workers, encouraging automakers to increase their offers. Republicans, including former Vice President and current presidential candidate Mike Pence, blamed the strike on Biden's economic policies, including the push for a transition to electric vehicles.
China's tourism spending is booming as the Mid-Autumn Festival and national holidays are approaching. As of Friday, the number of hotel bookings at popular destinations on travel platform Tuna.com rose by over 500% compared with 2019. Advanced hotel bookings for the national holiday in Beijing jumped 540% from 2019. Flights booked in advance of the coming holidays were up 20% compared to the same year. In sports, Ferrari's Carlos Sainz claimed the second win of his F1 career at the Singapore Grand Prix. His victory also put an end to Ferrari's more than year-long win drought. The Spaniard won by less than 1 second ahead of McLaren's Lando Norris. Mercedes' Lewis Hamilton completed the podium, with Max Verstappen finishing 5th as his and Red Bull's win streak came to an end. Meantime, China's Zhou Guanyu finished in 12th place. And that's the news. Find out what the whole world is thinking in the agenda.
This week on the agenda, boiling point. Extreme weather strikes across the globe. Are climate catastrophes the new normal? Floods in Libya and China, to drought in Sri Lanka, not to mention heat waves and wildfires across much of Europe and North America. The summer of 2023 has highlighted the devastating impact of climate change like never before. It prompted UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres to declare we're no longer talking about global warming, but global boiling. So what can be done if these climate catastrophes are not to become the new normal? With me now is Nicholas Hagelberg, the Global Coordinator for Climate Change at the United Nations Environment Programme. July was likely the hottest the Earth has seen for about, I think, 120,000 years, leading the UN Secretary General, as we heard there, to say that we've passed this era of global warming and that we're talking about global boiling. Is that why this summer has seen such weather extremes?
What we're seeing now is a combination of 2 parts. So one is the ever-growing concentration of greenhouse gases in our atmosphere. And then we have just shifted from La Nina event that has been cooling the Pacific Ocean towards El Nino that started more or less in May. And that one is now causing the Pacific Ocean to increase in temperature. And those 2 events together has now led to the warmest July on record.
So let's talk about the science behind the ferocity in temperatures that we've been seeing, that we've been feeling. Is there any hope of reversing what seems to be a climate catastrophe?
So the kind of situation as we see it now with these events across the world from China to Brazil and US and Europe, we are likely to continue to see this in the foreseeable future. The good news is that we still have the opportunity, if and when we will reduce the greenhouse gas emissions, then the climate can stabilize into a new normal, which will not be too far from the climate that our human society has used to and that we have built up around.
I want to talk about the net zero goals and this goal of 1.5 degrees. Really, is that really just wishful thinking now? Because nearly 2 years ago, a UNEP report said there was no credible pathway to 1.5 degrees in place. I wonder if anything has really changed.
Well, so although it's still mathematically possible to keep the 1.5 degree alive, emissions are still increasing, global emissions that is, and it's only about 35 countries that have shifted and is on a stable pathway towards decreasing emissions. We do have a lot of countries that are still increasing their emissions, and they have not even stagnated. So it does not look too good for 1.5 degree, and even 2 degree, we have to really pull up our socks to deliver on that. But the solutions are available, so all the way from renewable energy to electric mobility to changes in diets to being more material efficient. The opportunities are right in front of us. We just need major political will, action from all individuals from private sector to take this forward, and it can still be done.
Well, what impact will it have on the world if we don't reach that? If it's 2 degrees, if it's more?
Well, so there was a few years ago the Governmental Panel on Climate Change came out with its report about the difference between 1.5 and 2 degrees. So at 1.5 degree global average warming, we are likely to lose about 50% of coral reefs. At 2 degrees, it's virtually 100%. So you may know that these coral reefs, they really underpin, for example, the food bounty that we get from our oceans. So there's a big difference. And I would like to perhaps draw your attention just to the human body temperature. If you have a child whose temperature would be 38 degrees or so, you wouldn't be too worried. But add another degree to it, and you will be worried, and you'll take that child to the doctor. So it's a major shift that we're talking about between 1.5 to 2 degrees, and even the trajectory we are on currently, which is 2.8 degrees warmer world.
Do you think the world pays enough attention to climate change? Things like how all of that exacerbates poverty, gender inequality, the loss of livelihoods and so on.
Yes, it is frustrating to observe the pace of change. It's not going as fast as we need and that we indeed wish for. But at the same time, there's been a marked difference in, for example, the price of renewables. So only 10 years ago, we could not imagine a situation where renewable energy would be the cheapest form of electricity production across most of the world. Just a few years ago even, before COVID, we would not have imagined a situation where electric vehicles are topping the sales statistics of new cars in many countries. So there is a change underway. We just want it to be supercharged and that it picks up steam as we go forward.
Do you think it's supercharging enough to get people more laser focused on the upcoming COP28?
So perhaps in regards to COP28, so there's 2 parts to the climate situation, what we need to do. One is agreeing internationally to to take collective action, so all countries together, and that's pretty much what COP28 is. They need to agree on how they deal with climate finance, mitigation, loss and damage, and global goal on adaptation, and so forth. That's what they need to agree to. Yet, each of those negotiating countries need to also, at the same time, in their countries, implement policies, allocate resources, and take climate action. This could be just the same areas that I just mentioned on renewable energy, sustainable mobility, shifting agricultural production, forest management, industrial processes, and so forth.
But at what point do you think the international community will say, right, we've talked about it enough, we have to have milestones in place, we have to have a fixed timetable to get things done?
Yes, having been at these negotiations quite a number of years now, it is interesting how sometimes countries get down into the really details, and you can see their kind of negotiation tactics around it. So we are not quite moving as fast as we need to. Well, we are not moving as fast as we need to. But it's not an easy one getting almost 200 countries to come together and agree. Sometimes even if you think in perhaps your personal life, trying to just get the two spouses to agree on something can be difficult. And when you add a few children in there as well, it gets very difficult to move things forward.
There is still much to talk about, the detail to be ironed out. I wonder, though, if the state of affairs has just got far too big, and that maybe that it's just too late to actually make any meaningful change and tackle the climate crisis.
So here, Julia, I would like to stress that every fraction of a degree matters. So the further we let the Earth warm up, the more we will move away from the climate that our societies have been built up around. So we can never give up on trying to solve this issue. So 1.5 is better than 1.6, 1.6 is better than 1.7, and so forth. So this is a battle that we just have to continue with, and our children, they will judge us on how we will do this.
Nicholas Hagelberg, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Find out what the whole world is thinking in the agenda.
Hong Kong and southern China recently saw the highest rainfall in a single hour since records began in 1884. And it's not only been record-breaking rain, but record-breaking heat that's hit the country this summer, when temperatures topped 52 degrees in Xinjiang province in July. Well, with me now to consider what China can do to tackle extreme weather is Dr. Alex Fisher, Programme Director of Climate Ambition at the Climate Works Foundation. Dr. Fisher, now, China has had a summer of exceptional weather events, extreme heat for weeks and then months of rain, and then floods, sometimes in places that would never been at risk before. What's going on?
Let's think about it. What is happening to us in the world? It's the level of CO2 is increasing in the atmosphere. As we all know, this works as a sort of blanket. So through this blanket, our temperature increase or gets more extreme. The rain, the precipitation from the ocean goes up, and we just see more and more extreme weather events. This obviously will continue to raise for the next years to come. I would say, even though it's devastating for each individual and of course for the families who are most affected, but that's the new normal we face today.
If we look at the last 10 years, these flood incidents have increased many, many times. Are things getting worse in terms of global warming, or are we all just getting much better at monitoring it and understanding the data?
That's a good point. Of course, news flowing around the world faster, so everybody can see it and everybody maybe has a feeling about it and is more affected. That's true. But the weather is changing. So if we look further, let's look back, 1980s. That's where actually the bleaching of the coral reefs started. There were the outcrops from those affected communities in the Maldives, Australia, and around the world, India, who really try to get attention that something is changing. Then through the 90s and the 2000s, the level of CO2 emission in the atmosphere kept increasing and still increase today. So what we will see the next years and decades to come is definitely more change, and we have to prepare for it. And obviously we do it, but it is the way the world is today. Sorry to say that.
And why do you think that climate change-driven extreme weather is a particular problem for somewhere like China?
First of all, China is the largest country in the world if it comes to population. Obviously, a lot of people will be affected. It's a huge country if it comes to geographic extension and the territory. It has the droughts and the dry weather in the north and cold weather in the north. It has the heat weather in the south. It has the coastline. It has desert. China is like a microcosmos of the world itself. So obviously, we will have many affected areas, and China in particular will have a strong effect if it comes to the buildings, the stock, because we just built this in the last decades, and this will be, for some people and some families and real estate owners, a devastating moment where we have to adjust.
Yes, there's been death, there's been destruction. People have lost their homes, they've been displaced. We've had huge amounts of farmland completely waterlogged and unusable. So food supplies have been affected. What do you think the economic pain has been on the country?
Yeah, this is of course an important question. I mean, you mentioned also the social pain with the family, so this really comes first. But then the economic pain, it is worth to really calculate it and have an overview on the provincial level, on the municipality level, what is happening through climate change, and make this clear in the discussion and the communities, how to maybe change policies, how to change building standards, how to change infrastructure. If it comes to roads, the tarmac on the road has to change so you don't have to repair it so often. So there's a lot of economic and social consequences from weather events. Why, having said that, it was always there, and you mentioned that earlier. Are we just reporting more? Yes, but also the weather events get more extreme, and I think that's what people have to prepare and have to adjust their living standards on municipality level, on provincial level, and on national level and the world.
So let's talk about what China's doing on that national level. Now, we've talked before on the agenda programme about sponge cities to reduce waterlogging and to prevent floods. What else is being piloted and put in place that you think is particularly interesting?
Yes, thank you so much for bringing that up. Having lived in China for a couple of years, you can see a lot of changes, a lot of policies adjustment. First of all, on the national political level, they're doing a lot, and probably on the national level, they are already on the edge on what is possible, because obviously the next level will be then provincial and community level. And I think there is really some space for improvement, actually in all countries, also in Germany. So while the national level is pushing the provincial and the municipality level to take action, to be the leaders, and then also ensure their population what is the right thing to do. There's a lot of work to be done, and consumers have to be informed. What are the right decisions? Investors have to be informed. They have to take climate change into consideration. This all happens on municipality and provincial level, and individual people which are sort of responsible for those decisions, they really have to take climate change into the daily decision making. I think there we can improve, but this doesn't only count for China, this counts for all of us in the world.
So let's talk about climate resilience. Now, at last week's Africa Climate Summit, leaders called for debt relief to help end the climate crisis. Is it as simple as that?
Put it that way, there's a debt stress, and taking this away obviously will help those communities and those nations, for example Zambia and other nations where this just happened in a concerted effort between the international community, including China. Definitely is going to help Zambia and other countries if you take it away. Does it affect climate change measures and policies? Not necessarily, except Zambia decides to change the investment structure at large. Otherwise, it just gives some relief. So it's a short-term measure, if you want to call it that way, and will help to adjust to climate change if you change your investment structure afterwards and have a long-term perspective. Much more important, from my point of view, is the decision from the African nation to push forward on a worldwide carbon market where we align together as a world how to price these environmental externalities like CO2 emissions. And this will, of course, potentially have a long-term effect if the world agrees on the market system where those who polluting pay for those who are affected. And this will change, obviously, then. That relief has a short-term relief measure only. Thank you.
So you're talking then about this carbon tax regime. You think it might make a difference, but how likely is that going to happen?
That's a very good question, the $66 million question. What can I say? If the 54 leaders in Africa really put their political weight behind this, I think the rest of the world has to move faster. There's a commitment from the world to happen, but will it happen in 2050, 2060, 2040? I think that's what we discuss. While the African Climate Summit, we're pushing for 2030, which is for such a global system, of course, very soon. And if they really pursue that and make it the centerpiece of their political engagement in the climate change sphere, I think there's a chance that this could happen much sooner than we all expect.
Dr. Alex Fisher, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Still to come here on the agenda, how the European Space Agency is fighting back against wildfires.
Find out what the whole world is thinking in the agenda.
Welcome back to the agenda. Technology will have to be key to the world's battle against climate change. And one advance that could already be helping is the European Space Agency's World Fire Atlas. To explain, joining me now is Dr. Clément Albergel from the European Space Agency. Thanks ever so much both for coming on the agenda. Now tell us about this upgrade to the European Space Agency's World Fire Atlas. How does it work and what's changed?
Thank you. The series of heat waves we are experiencing this summer across the world is accompanied by a series of wildfires, multiple wildfires from Canada to Turkey, all over the Mediterranean basin. To better understand those extreme events, we need observation. To better understand the variability of the climate system, how it changes, we need observations. Satellite Earth observations, such as operated by the European Space Agency in partnership with the European Union under the Copernicus program, are particularly useful as they permit to scan our planet. They provide observations with global scale, uniformity, rapid measurement, and continuity. They permit to test the pulse of our planet. The European Space Agency World Fire Atlas provides a very detailed analysis of wildfire across the globe. It offers an insight into the distribution of individual fires taking place at both a national and global scale. Through its interactive dashboards, users can compare the frequency of fires between countries, as well as analyze the evolution of fires taking place over time.
So how accurate is the imagery and how is it processed?
The World Fire Atlas uses nighttime data from an instrument on board the Copernicus Sentinel-3 satellite that measures thermal infrared radiation to take the temperature of the Earth's land surface. It is used to detect fire. Even if the Atlas cannot pick up all fires because of satellite overpass constraints, its specific spatial resolution and cloud coverage, it statistically represents 1 month to the other and 1 year to the other.
And the data that you are retrieving now, I mean, it's quite alarming, isn't it? Especially compared to 4 years ago.
Exactly. What we see is that even if periods of intense heat can occur within natural weather pattern, we can clearly see that things are accelerating. If there is one kind of extreme event that we can clearly link to climate change, it is worsening heat waves. Heat waves are getting hotter. They are occurring at a higher frequency, increasing the likelihood of having sequential heat waves, and they are doing longer. Human-induced climate change is boosting heat waves. In our data, we can see that heat waves followed by wildfire outbreaks are accelerating.
So you're getting a deeper understanding of what's happening and what's changing, but I wonder how the satellite service maybe can help civilian protection authorities, and in cases of disaster, the international humanitarian community. How's it going to help them to respond to emergencies like we're seeing?
The Copernicus program, I've mentioned, has its own family of satellites, the Sentinel missions, developed by the European Space Agency. But it also has services. Copernicus provides a united system through which the vast amount of data provided by the Sentinels are fed into a range of thematic information services designed to benefit the environment. And these services fall into 6 main categories. One of them is emergency management. And one of the components of the emergency management is the European Forest Fire Information System, EFIS, which provides the most up-to-date information on the current fire season in Europe and in the Mediterranean area. And this includes 2 days meteorological fire danger maps and forecasts up to 8 days ahead, daily updated maps of hotspots and fire perimeters based on satellite-derived data. EFIS provides specific support to the Emergency Response Coordination Center in Brussels, which is fed with near real-time information along the fire season. And the information it provides, based on satellite Earth observation, is used by civil protection agencies, firefighters, to support decision-making on the ground.
So it does sound like this data is quite critical for forecasting. But is there anything preventative that we can gain from this technology?
We clearly need to develop advanced methods of fire forecasting to protect both human life as well as ecosystem in the face of a changing climate. Current fire danger metrics have significant limitations. Most fire indices are calculated using daily temperatures, relative humidity, wind speed, and rainfall to simulate the moisture content of the ground. They lack a connection with real-time information about the amount of fuel, such as dry vegetation or flammable material that is present and susceptible to burning. Data from satellite Earth observations, such as those from the ESA soil moisture and ocean salinity missions, MOS, can be used as an indicator of the fuel quantity and moisture. And combining those data with actual fire risk index permits to improve the accuracy and timeliness of fire prediction on a global scale.
Dr. Clément Albergel, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Coming up on a future agenda, the rise of the robot. Is the world ready for an entirely automated future? But for now, from me, Juliet Mann, and from all the Agenda team here in London, goodbye.
Would you like to receive the latest news updates of the globe? Tune in to the Beijing Hour every weekday for the latest in politics, business, sports, and entertainment from a Chinese perspective. Subscribe to the Beijing Hour for free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. With the universal greeting. Learn to speak.
Bonjour, comment allez-vous? Hoy estoy muy contenta.
Though our languages, cultures, and traditions may differ, we still share one thing in common. We have hope for humanity and the world.
German railway company.
Director of the International Monetary Fund,
Hear the difference with CGTN Radio. Join a global network to connect with the world.
CGTN Radio. Hear the difference.
So learning Chinese, the most difficult thing.
So I'm sort of tone deaf. I can't really hear them.
I think the cultural mindset is the biggest complication for grammar.
Take Away Chinese, where you can take some Chinese away and experience progress day by day. Online, on air, and on your phone. Take today wherever you go and stay ahead of what's changing our world. From politics and the economy to business and technology, Today covers regional and international issues that affect China and the world. Keep up to date with Today.
A roundup of the main business news from China and elsewhere. This is Global Business. From QTH headquarters here in Beijing, this is Global Business. I'm Michael Wong. Coming up on the program, stronger China-Southeast Asia relations. Chinese Premier Li Qiang vowed a fair competition and a good business environment for foreign businesses as the China-ASEAN Expo kicks off. Closer cross-strait relations. Today in our special series Biz Focus, we'll take a closer look at how entrepreneurs from Taiwan are leveraging opportunities in neighboring Fujian province. And celebrating 10 years of the Belt and Road Initiative. Our reporters are on the ground in Turkey and the UAE to explore how the BRI is supporting local developments. Chinese Mohawk stocks started the week on an upbeat note as investors digested those better-than-expected August economic data from last week, including, of course, more policy support from Beijing. The Shanghai Composite Index gained nearly 0.3% this Monday, while the Shenzhen Component Index edged up by more than 0.5%. Of course, we'll have more on the Chinese mainland markets later in the program. And we start in China's Guangxi Autonomous Region, where the China-ASEAN Expo is underway in the capital of which celebrates its 20th anniversary this year, has become a major platform facilitating cooperation between China and the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. On Sunday, Chinese Premier Li Qiang delivered a keynote speech at its opening ceremony. Our Gao Wang has more.
Work together for a harmonious home and a shared future in promoting high-quality development of the Belt and Road Initiative and nurturing a new epicenter of growth. This is the theme of the 20th China-ASEAN Expo this year. At the opening ceremony on Sunday, Chinese Premier Li Qiang was joined by foreign leaders and senior officials from Cambodia, Laos, Malaysia, and several other countries. Boosting trade and economic cooperation between China and ASEAN countries and promoting regional economic integration were high on the agenda.
China will adhere to the basic national policy of opening up, deepen the opening up of rules, regulations, management, standards, and other institutional systems, and increase the protection of intellectual property rights. We will make every effort to maintain and promote fair competition and strive to create a good business environment that allows investors from all over the world to feel at ease, assured, and comfortable.
Official data shows that nearly 2,000 enterprises are attending the expo, up more than 18% from last year's edition. Plenty of forums are set to take place during the 4-day event to discuss China-ASEAN cooperation in diverse areas, including e-commerce, environmental protection, energy cooperation, the blue economy, and more. China has remained ASEAN's largest trading partner for 14 consecutive years, and the two sides have been each other's top trading partners for 3 years in a row. According to officials, advanced technology, sustainable development, and foreign investment facilitation are high on agenda for this year's expo. Organizers have also set up special areas for digital technologies and industrial design, aiming to boost cooperation on all fronts between China and ASEAN countries. Gao, CGTN, Nanning, Guangxi Autonomous Region.
Meanwhile, Chinese Vice Commerce Minister Li Fei says China will further deepen cooperation with ASEAN with negotiations for a version 3.0 China-ASEAN Free Trade Area being accelerated. Vice Commerce Minister Li made the remarks at a thematic event on Sunday on the sidelines of the China-ASEAN Expo.
China is willing to work with ASEAN to accelerate negotiations on the version 3.0 China-ASEAN Free Trade Area and strive to reach an early consensus. We will jointly implement the RCEP, a joining mechanism as soon as possible, and work together to practice true multilateralism and open regionalism.
Li also announced plans to gradually enhance institutional opening up and decrease restrictions on foreign investment through a revised negative list. He says China aims to boost imports of agricultural products from the region and expand intermediate goods trade. China and ASEAN jointly announced the official launch of the negotiations back in November of last year. Fields being covered include trade in goods, investments, digital, and the green economy. So for more on the China-ASEAN Expo, let's get on the ground to Nanning and check in with our Gaoang. Gaoang, thank you so much for joining us. So walk us through the highlights of this year's China-ASEAN Expo.
Yes, Michael. So boosting trade and economic collaboration between China and ASEAN, and also promoting the regional economic integration were definitely key topics, not only for the opening ceremony attended yesterday, but also for the events behind me and all this pavilion. So trade is definitely one of the highlights of China-ASEAN cooperation. I want to stress that China has been ASEAN's largest trading partner for 14 consecutive years, and both sides have been each other's top trading partners for 3 years in a row. And back in 2022, China-ASEAN trade exceeded over $970 billion US. The number is up more than 11% year on year. So according to officials, both sides have fostered cooperation highlights in climate action, environmental protection, energy transition, and also poverty reduction. And they also have been cooperating in digital economy and low carbon and green transition. So the China-ASEAN Expo is seen as a very critical platform to boost trade, investment, and tourism between China and ASEAN. And this year, over 1,500 reporters coming from worldwide on the 20th edition of the Expo. And the Expo provides us with this guidebook for press. And although it looks like quite a tiny book, they are actually very comprehensive information of nearly every forum, ranging from energy transition to green development. So it also lists the major achievements of China-ASEAN cooperation over the past 2 decades. And for myself, I've been focusing on the new energy cooperation between China and ASEAN. This morning, I spoke to a Chinese electric car maker who's been focusing their overseas strategy in the ASEAN market. So the person from the company told me that they've already covered 9 of 10 ASEAN countries, and Thailand is one of their major countries. So since the beginning of this year, one of every 5 pure electric cars in Thailand was made by this Chinese company. And they've also done a lot of job about analyzing the different countries in the ASEAN region, because they have very different consumption habits, different preferences for the cars. So need to target each country with very different strategy. But still, they are seeing the ASEAN market as a very booming market with great potential, because he said that they have a younger generation who are well-educated, and they know a lot about how is the NEV like in China, in the US, and in Europe markets. So I feel it's a very interesting topic to learn more, especially in the new energy cooperation between China and ASEAN countries. And tomorrow will be the closing ceremony of this year's Expo, and we'll keep you updated. Michael.
All right, many thanks for that report. Our Gaoang for us at the China-ASEAN Expo in Nanning. Thank you. And the 34th Shanghai Tourism Festival opens Saturday and will run for 3 weeks, aimed at boosting consumer spending in the sector. In many ways, things are already picking up, as our Zhang Shixuan has been discovering.
The hotels have been among the first to see the recovery in tourism, both international and domestic. For U.S. headquartered hotel group Hilton, this year has already brought better than expected performance, especially since the summer vacation.
In August, we see that major cities like Chengdu, Beijing, and Changsha, their both performance and recovery of the occupancy is much better than we expected. And we see that family travel, individual friends travel is very high demand. Besides of the normal travel, we see some of the cultural events that happens, such as Asian Game and Build the Road Forum, and plus of our summer Davis. We facilitate some of the program, such as intangible cultural heritage activities. We got a very much, positive feedback from those customers.
Every year for the last 3 years, the group has been opening 100 new hotels in China.
We have a major milestones coming 600 hotels by the end of this year. China is such a large country and reflect of different segmentation of customers. So in the near future, we're going to look at, another new brand into China. We got destinations like resort hotel. Besides, on top of that, actually there's a lot of destinations. And we would like to explore, where our Chinese domestic travelers go to.
China's tourism consumption has seen a continued recovery in the third quarter. Data from the China Tourism Academy says that during the summer travel peak between June and August, the number of domestic trips topped more than 1.8 million, generating revenue of more than 1.2 trillion yuan. And the upcoming National Day holiday is expected to bring another boost, which could well come as a promising signal for the foreign invested firms here. Madame Tussauds Asian flagship in downtown Shanghai saw more than 1 million visitors a year before 2020, and it's proving just as popular now. It's just carried out an upgrade to some show areas to provide guests with more immersive experiences.
So far, we have many peak season, holiday, peak season like summer holiday. Actually, our recovery rate is around 60% compared with 2019. We have many guests from Jiangsu and Zhejiang province, also the Shanghai citizen. Meanwhile, the North China and the East China, their guest number have been climbing up very much. We will see that more and more brands are choosing Shanghai, and we have seen many competitors in Shanghai now. Let's say many investors, they have confidence about Shanghai.
The company is continuing to launch new figures this year. Yang says the same number as in 2019, and an expansion which it intends to continue. The Shanghai Municipal Administration of Culture and Tourism reports that in the first half of 2023, Shanghai received almost 140 million domestic visitors, generating tourism revenue of more than 155 billion yuan, an increase of more than 100% year-on-year. Zhao Shushen, ICS for CTN Shanghai.
In time now for our special series, Biz Focus. In today's edition, our reporter Aaron Liu takes you to Pingtan Island in Fujian Province, part of a comprehensive experimental area that aims to accelerate the all-round opening up to Taiwan Island. Now, with the promotion of the Belt and Road Initiative this year, Pingtan has become increasingly prominent in Southeast China. While Pingtan Island is the closest place on the Chinese mainland to Taiwan Island, only 68 nautical miles away from Hsinchu Port, which is playing an increasingly important role in promoting the integration and development between the two sides. The island is home to many stories of entrepreneurs from Taiwan leveraging opportunities here on the Chinese mainland. Now, one such entrepreneur is Fu Tao Cheng, who set up a snail farming business in Pingtan with support from the local government.
Today I'm going to take you to meet a young man from Taiwan. He started a snail farming project to help increase the villagers' income. Recently, his first batch of snails has grown over the course of 3 months. Let's go and have a look together.
Fu Tao Cheng, born in 1996, is from Yunlin County, Taiwan. In 2021, he came to Pingtan as a rural construction engineer. In order to help the local people become prosperous, he chose to raise snails and receive support from the local government.
Based on the current scale breeding, it's estimated that 600 snails could be sold for over 20,000 yuan.
The white snail is super cute with its white body. It's been growing for 3 months. That is about half the size of a pump.
I hope to showcase my professional skills on a broader stage and bring prosperity to more compatriots. So I chose to come here. The garden also helps me understand the local situation. The snail greenhouse is a collaboration between village collective, villagers, and businesses. Support from the government.
Fu Tao Cheng's connection with Pingtan dates back to 2019, when Pingtan invited Taiwan community construction engineers to participate in rural revitalization.
I selected a piece of nearly 1 wasteland for transformation. This farming field adopts a planting and breeding model where besides raising snails, we also grow sweet potatoes.
In order to create a harmonious and cohesive big family in Shanglu village, who organized a series of volunteer activities.
And it's really dedicated. The village specifically found a place to help him set up an activity center where many activities are held. He has decorated like a home.
And incorporated many interesting local elements. The area where snail farming is continuously expanding. These are all local Taiwan events. I have created a foot map and with the support of the government, this system becomes quite controlled.
As the farming becomes more mature, more villagers join, and the empty space affected the courtyard becomes an ideal place for snail farming, and the villagers' income keeps increasing.
And another Pingtan success story is the founder of a chip design company. Since its establishment in Pingtan in 2015, Zhongren's operational efficiency has reached new highs, with sales of 120 million yuan last year. Our Aaron Liu spoke to Chen Mengbang, founder of the company, for more.
Chen Mengbang, a native of Taipei, Taiwan, came to Pingtan, Fujian in 2015 and started a semiconductor technology company. He witnessed the rapid development of the integrated circuit industry in Pingtan.
In my heart, Fujian has always been a place where I wanted to establish roots in farming because my grandparents are from Fujian.
In the following years, thanks to a favorable development environment, the company has made significant progress.
Since settling in the Taiwan Entrepreneurship Park, the most is that the policies related to Taiwan entrepreneurs can be implemented effectively. In Pingtan, we have also benefited from incentives such as 15% personal income tax subsidies, living allowances, and resettlement subsidies.
More than achieving breakthroughs in revenue, Chen is proud of having an excellent team of technology researchers, which has also created job opportunities for local electronic graduates in Pingtan.
2/3 of our team are locals from Pingtan. It is rare to be able to establish and develop this team from scratch in Pingtan.
In 2021, the company not only received over 20 million yuan in investment, but also expanded its subsidiaries' equipment, further extending the integrated circuit industry chain.
In 2 more years, the integrated circuit industry in Pingtan is expected to become a pillar industry. The future of Pingtan will undoubtedly get better and better. I hope to learn from the experience of integrated circuit development in Taiwan and attract more talent from Taiwan to come to Pingtan for development.
Aerial CGTN, Pingtan.
Well, over the past decade, 152 countries and 32 international organizations have signed up to the Belt and Road Initiative. As the initiative hits its 10-year mark, CGTN reporters have traveled to 22 Belt and Road nations across Asia, Africa, Europe, and Latin America to uncover stories of cooperation, transformation, and people-to-people exchanges within the framework. Setting off from the Gujarat Pass on the China-Pakistan border, our reporters are in Pakistan, Turkey, Greece, and Tanzania. In our special report on the BRI today, the CGTN's visits a thermal power plant in southern Turkey to discover what makes this particular power plant stand out. This is China's largest investment project in Turkey. Located in southern Turkey's Adana province, this huge factory, the Hunutulu Thermal Power Plant, is funded by China with $1.7 billion already invested, from planning and design to building and enterprise coordination. It took a decade for the coal-fired power plant to finally come into operation last year. Negative impact on us, as we needed to transport many items from overseas. The COVID-19 period extended shipping times. Also, because of the travel barrier, our workers' mobility was diminished. But even under those circumstances, we still managed to pull through and finish the construction 3 months earlier than expected. The power project has 2 units of 660 megawatt-hour generation equipment, which are at the heart of the fan. They are able to supply around 4% of Turkey's national annual electricity production. More than 90% of the parts in these 2 units come from China. However, that figure flips when considering the vast number of local residents employed. Basically, our staff are all Turkish locals. We have 411 employees in total. 360 of them are Turkish. You see here in the central control room, we have 11 staff here. Only one supervisor is Chinese. Director Zhang is proud of his localization strategy. He said, the power plant has been creating job opportunities for people living in surrounding areas. When you come back 2 or 3 years later, our staff for production management may all be filled by local Turks. Well, I carefully put a heavy question to him. Is it possible in some day that the local Turk will take your position? It is possible. Since my position as a director is at a senior level, we definitely need someone that appreciates our Chinese culture. It should be someone that can keep our strong management and production practices alive. That is very important. And for Turkish and Chinese employees, they are actively trying to break the cultural barriers themselves.
There are some cultural differences in Turkish people and Chinese people. But we eliminate this difference day by day.
And we arrange the celebration together.
Yes.
Sometimes we are do barbecue.
Planning together.
Now, the Hunoturu power plant is striving to develop itself in a forward-thinking, clean energy thermal power plant. In many corners of the plant, you can see photovoltaic panels for clean energy generation. And even in the parking lot, you can find them on the shelters. The power plant is still planning to build more photovoltaic panels in its nearby hills. As a project linking China's Belt and Road Initiative with Turkey's Middle Corridor region, the Hunoturu power plant is ready to build much closer ties with Turkey's people and business. Just like this signboard says, China-Turkey integration and cooperation can make a win-win. Wang Kei, CGTN, Suguzu, Turkey.
And another group of our reporters is trekking through a different route of the BRI. Starting from Beijing, they're visiting the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Sri Lanka, and Thailand. The United Arab Emirates was one of the first countries to participate in the Belt and Road Initiative. Since then, China and the UAE have worked on many joint projects, including the CSP Abu Dhabi terminal. It's one of the first terminals to use an autonomous internal truck system. CGTN's Yo Yang has more from Abu Dhabi.
CSP Abu Dhabi Terminal is China Ocean Shipping Group's first international greenfield project operating within the United Arab Emirates flagship deepwater Khalifa port. It's also Coast Shipping subsidiary and a strategic hub along China's Belt and Road Initiative, with the biggest container freight station in the region. The water depth of the terminal is 18 meters, allowing it to accommodate 24,000 TEU plus capacity mega vessels. And it's also the first in the Middle East to introduce autonomous internal trucks within the terminal, cementing CSP Abu Dhabi terminal and Khalifa port standing as one of the most advanced maritime facilities in the region. Earlier paid a visit to the terminal while exploring this breakthrough system. A flagship project under the Belt and Road Initiative between China and the United Arab Emirates, and a strategic hub connecting the region to international markets. Strategically located between Abu Dhabi and Dubai, CSP Abu Dhabi Terminal is China Ocean Shipping Group's first international greenfield project operating within the world-renowned deepwater Khalifa port. The terminal boasts water depths of 18 meters, allowing it to accommodate mega vessels with a capacity of up to 24,000 TEU, the measurement used to describe shipping containers. And it's also the first facility in the Middle East to introduce an autonomous internal truck system within the terminal.
For us, we are the first ones to have the AI-powered Q-trucks. Yeah, this is artificial intelligence, and we have 6 of them running here in the region. We are the first terminal to have CSP Abu Dhabi terminal is the first to have this technology.
The automated freight trucks are equipped with a cutting-edge 360-degree sensory system that includes traffic monitoring and driving guidance features.
The construction of the CSP Abu Dhabi terminal started in 2017 and was open to shipping in December 2018. It's designed to have the capacity to handle 2.5 million TEUs, or 20 food equivalent units. We operated without interruption during the COVID-19 pandemic. Last year, we handled 1 million TEUs, a year-on-year increase of 46%.
Local officials say they hope the growth of Khalifa ports will have a positive impact on the neighboring Khalifa industrial zone, aligned with the conscious efforts to diversify its economy.
The CSP Abu Dhabi terminal serves as a key passage under the Belt and Road Initiative in the Middle East. It has a very important geographical location. We've dedicated building this port as a hub, which is to say other shipping routes will be arranged to serve the operations of the port.